episode number 167 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This episode is being recorded on Thursday, June 12th, 2025 at 5:06 p.m. I almost said July 12th, but that's not right. Speaking of July, man, we're getting to that point, the halfway year point, and I think when it comes to the first episode of July, I'll put together a little sort of list. Not even list necessarily in terms of like a ranking sort of order, but just some films from this year that I think are worth your time. Films that may have not gotten as much talk or have not got as much discourse in the general or discussion in the general kind of discourse. So there's been a lot of good stuff this year. I think this year so far has been pretty solid overall. I mean, we're only 6 months in. Well, 6 months in at this point, and there's already been a couple of films that are definitely just really, really just exceptional work. Some of it streaming, some of them theatrically, and the line gets kind of pushed and drawn about sort of what film is this year, what film is last year, and sort of like I used to kind of try to draw those lines, but ultimately it becomes like a never-ending game. So the way that I see it, if it was released where I was able to see it in 2025, then I'm going to count it for the most part. I mean, there's if I'm looking at like my favorites of the year, I mean, stuff like The Brutalist, I guess could be considered that, but I think because I mean, I put it on a favorites of 2025 list. So I guess I can count that in the conversation, but I'm thinking about more so without any kind of ambiguity about films that may have been widely released or films that weren't actually shown until this year. Because even something like The Brutalist or even like the Nickel Boys, for one, were nominated for Academy Awards this past Academy Awards season, so they're counting it as 2024. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter, so to speak. But either way, I'll put that together. Highlight some films that I think are worth your time, definitely. And one of the things that I had wanted to mention in terms of the talk last week that I had neglected to was I was talking about Bug and Killer Joe, and I was discussing how they felt so much like plays, and I neglected to bring up the fact that both Bug and Killer Joe were both originally. Oh, grab something there. Were both originally plays written by Tracy Letts. I don't remember if Killer Joe was first when that premiered or if Bug was first. Um, it looks like okay, six and Killer Joe was 1999, and Tracy Letts is a known writer, playwright. He has won the Pulitzer Prize for drama, and having now finished the Friedkin Connection book and allowing the context into play about the process and the difficult process of turning those into films and sort of the hoops to jump through to get a film like that made, even by somebody who's a legendary filmmaker. I haven't picked up the Radiance Blu-ray, the 4K of Todd Solondz's film Palindromes. I don't know if I've ever actually even talked about that film on the show, but I think it's a really exceptional film. But a little while ago, when I was watching, it may have even been Palindromes that I was watching, or maybe Life During Wartime. But I saw Palindromes after the fact, but I think it must have been when I was watching that. I was thinking about, man, he hasn't made a film in a while. His last film was Wiener Dog from 2016, and an acquaintance of mine who has the new 4K release of Palindromes was talking about on the interviews how Todd Solondz currently is been having difficulty getting another film off the ground, which is kind of crazy. Actually, let me remove kind out of that. That is crazy. It's sort of like no matter how renowned of a filmmaker you are, no matter what kind of status that you have, the never ending sort of cycle to get these films made is completely wild. You think somebody out there, just give these guys money to do what they want. It's just completely absurd. Todd Solondz, of course, brilliant filmmaker. I think I've seen almost all of his feature films. He directed, in terms of his features, Fear, Anxiety, and Depression from 1989, which I haven't seen. And I've seen his next five, and those next one, two, three, four, yeah, five. So I've seen all these. Welcome to the Dollhouse in 1995, Happiness 1998, Storytelling 2001, Palindromes 2004, and Life During Wartime 2009. And then his last two, his newest two, Dark Horse from 2011 and Wiener Dog from 2016, I have not seen. I've heard, from what I can remember, I remember hearing good things about them. And I like all these films. I like them for one way or another. I think Welcome to the Dollhouse is the one that to me, kind of hones in his style the most, because you could say Happiness, because I think that's probably the most well-known film, it's on, most controversial film of his. Um, but I think Welcome to the Dollhouse has that sort of, not even mean streak in a way where it's mean-spirited, but it's got this undercurrent in his films of cruelty in a way that a dark kind of comedy really kind of comes into it. Happiness, I think, really kind of puts that on the forefront, where it's definitely a dark comedy, but it has these really um, dark, sort of dramatic, almost mean-spirited aspects to it, of characters being cruel to each other. Not even just specifically Dylan Baker's character in that film, um, who plays a very troubled character, to put it lightly. But sort of the fantasies that he has, and sort of the daydreams that he has, that leads into um, a really kind of complex character in a way that I think is such a fine line to draw. And reminds me of actually another film that I watched recently, which I won't talk about, but I think didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry if the loud noise kind of came up there for a second, but um, The Woodsman from 2005. I'm sorry, 2004, starring Kevin Bacon. It's an interesting, very interesting film. I think actually a very under talked about film. It also has Keir Sedgwick in the film. David Allen Greer. You have what the hell is his name? It is, oh my gosh. Bear with me for just a minute. It's, who am I thinking of then? Never mind, forget about it. Anyways, solid film. Oh, also actually Michael Shannon. Speaking of William Friedkin, Michael Shannon's got a small role in the film. But it's a solid film. Really good. Benjamin Bratt is in the film. Good, complex character study. Kevin Bacon, who has just got out of jail. He's a child molester, and he is trying to adjust to this new life. And the really complex sort of life the really kind of complex situation that we as an audience have to put ourselves into for the sake of this film, in a way where we are never sympathizing with him, but we are being put into this situation that um, he is in. And the actor I was thinking of, by the way, I couldn't remember. So the name was throwing me off. The actor Mos Def. That's how I think I used to know him. I don't know what group he was in. I'm not too familiar with a lot of like hip hop and stuff. But the name Yazin Bey, and I was like, man, I know that actor. When it wasn't coming up for me, and yeah, it was formerly Mos Def as a cop in that film, or a detective who was really just waiting for Kevin Bacon's character to slip and really kind of do something. And it's a really interesting film. I really like the film actually quite a bit. You don't see it's a film that wouldn't play to a wide kind of scale audience, because of just how dark the subject matter is, and much like Happiness, although it is never um, trying to make you sympathize with the protagonist. It does put you in that situation, in this character's shoes, of just what they would be put through, so to speak. But it's but a really solid film. Oh yeah, Todd Solondz, wonderful filmmaker. I think all of his films are now pretty readily available. Welcome to the Dollhouse, I know, has a Blu-ray from Radiance. Happiness has a release from Criterion. Storytelling has a release from Shout Select. Palindromes as well from Radiance. Life During Wartime has a Criterion, but I don't know if it's in print or not, so don't quote me on that. And I think Dark Horse has a Blu-ray. I'm not sure. And same thing for Wiener Dog. I'm pretty sure at least Wiener Dog was an Amazon film, and I know that those don't always get um, physical releases. So I don't know if that one did or not. But those two will be watched in due time. Todd Solondz, I think, is one of the great American filmmakers, especially one that is still working. And I look forward to whatever he does next. One of a kind, unquestionably. Um, for sure, man. For sure. Yeah, really excellent stuff there. I really gotta, Welcome to the Dollhouse, especially, I think, is the one above all else. Just a great kind of coming of age films, but something much darker to it. I mean, you can look at it. For some reason, I think I always kind of associate that film with Ghost World, um, the Terry Zwigler film, or not Terry. Oh my gosh, my brain is fried. The Terry Zwigoff. I'm sorry. I think because of Thora Birch's character in that film reminds me of the lead from Welcome to the Dollhouse. The lead, Heather Matarazzo. Matarazzo. Is she the one in Hostel Part 2? Is that her in that film? I think it is, guys. I think she was in Hostel Part 2. I don't know why that film comes to mind. Yes, she was in Hostel Part 2. And I guess she was also in Princess Diaries, but I haven't seen that film. I don't know why the Hostel Part 2 came to mind. Don't even worry about it, guys. Quality film. Ghost World, also quality film. Let's talk about Ghost World, man. Ghost World, 2001. Directed by Terry Zwigoff, great filmmaker. Based off a graphic novel, I believe. Daniel Close. Am I pronouncing all these names incorrectly? Probably. I had no intention of talking about it, but I suppose I will for the time being. One of the great coming-of-age films. We follow Thora Birch, Scarlett Johansson. They just graduate high school. They're best friends. They're living in the small town. And they seem to be kind of bored with their lives. They don't really know what they want to do. They want to move in with each other. Thora Birch's character, who's the main protagonist, she plays the character Enid. She is really kind of, you can't really keep a job down. They're both kind of drifting through life. Scarlett Johansson, you get the sense. Scarlett Johansson plays his character, Rebecca. You get the sense, excuse me. You get the sense that she's a bit more kind of focused, a bit more into knowing what she's doing. But good cast as well. We'll get into it in a little bit. But we see that they one day they see an ad in a paper, and they end up meeting this character Seymour, played by Steve Buscemi. And at first, it's sort of a mean-spirited sort of friendship that they're, I think he was like looking for like a romance kind of ad, or he put out like a romantic ad in the paper. He's a lonely guy. He kind of keeps to himself. He likes to collect records. He's an older kind of guy, and at first they're like, man, this guy's kind of pathetic. This guy's kind of a loser. But ultimately, while Thora Birch tries to really kind of find herself as a person, she starts to connect more with Seymour in a very sincere way, in a very intimate way. And it's also a very funny film as well. It's a film with a lot of side characters, a lot of like little moments throughout that aren't like big laugh out loud moments that you'd be, quoting about with your coworkers at the water cooler on Monday, but just little moments that overall kind of snowball into a lighter sort of tone. And it's a film that I don't know how widely seen this was when it initially released. I always remembered the poster of this, and I was like, man, I didn't know what this was. But Terry Zwigoff is a really solid filmmaker. Yeah, he's directed a couple of films. He directed He made his debut in 1985 with Louie Bluey, which I haven't seen. Then he really kind of came onto the scene in 1994 in terms of wide scale, in terms of maybe where a lot of people may be more familiar with him with his documentary Crumb about the cartoonist Robert Crumb, and it's primarily focused on him, but also his family as well, and his brother in the film Charles Crumb. That's a really, really interesting documentary for sure. And actually, I've mentioned it before, but if any of you have the Blu-ray for the documentary I always want to champion, which is Love and Saucers, there is an interview with Robert Crumb on that Blu-ray about the main guy in Love and Saucers, whose name I do not remember right now. I do apologize. I remember it not being the highest quality, but it is still interesting to kind of have an interview with Robert Crumb on there. But on a more wide scale level, he would uh, he would do Ghost World in 2001, and then the very popular populist film Bad Santa from 2003, and then he did Art School Confidential in 2006, and I have that film as well on an MVD Blu-ray, and that's a pretty good film. It's a film that I don't think is great, but I think is pretty good. That could be great, but I think Ghost World is his strongest for sure. It's just that, like I said, that relationship between Thora Birch and Steve Buscemi, it's so sincere. It never gets bogged down too much into any kind of real dour drama, but we do get like just some great moments with Steve Buscemi sort of talking about himself, talking about his life, and how lonely he can kind of be sometimes. Um, and just that real friendship, even when things start to get sort of a bit more downbeat, it's never a dour film. It's never like a too sad of a film. It's ultimately two outsiders who end up kind of coming together. And I think a film like this, um, I think it's almost better that it didn't get made now, because I remember, when something like Licorice Pizza came out, I remember kind of hearing a lot of just kind of nonsense about people talking about the relationship in that film, and I've talked about that film before. And I think that film is so misinterpreted for what kind of relationship it is in that film. It's one where I think like the very ending of that film kind of sums up the entire film about two characters who can't be together, but ultimately will, need each other. Not in the same way of like Midnight Cowboy works. I never saw that situation as being romantic. I mean, maybe with these characters in Licorice, with Licorice Pizza, it's a one-sided sort of relationship. But it's one where I watch this film and I almost kind of wonder if people, kind of the cynical sort of contemporary look at something like this would be like, oh man, this guy is so weird, just hanging out with this young girl, but it never comes across that way. And I think that innocent sort of look at these characters is what really kind of helps the film overall. Because Steve Buscemi, I think, is really good in this film. He's one of these great actors who has such a wide sort of range in his filmography, doing really silly, kind of big, broad comedies, and then just really um, more kind of smaller, quieter roles. I've always been a fan of him in the film In the Soup from I think 1996 to my knowledge. I'm sorry, 1992. That film with Seymour Cassell and directed by Alexander Rockwell, and Jennifer Beals is in that film. She's like a big kind of she was like one of these actresses who I feel like was kind of like synonymous with being like in a lot of like 80s and 90s films. I know she ended up being she was on that show The L Word. I never watched that show. That was like a very popular show, but I always think of her back to like Devil in a Blue Dress, and even like something sillier like Vampire's Kiss, or just these kinds of films where I always kind of associate her with the 80s and the 90s and stuff. She's a really solid actress as well. But yeah, In the Soup I think is a very, even now, kind of a pretty underappreciated film that has a Blu-ray from Factory 25, and there's an additional film um, in that Blu-ray that I'm blanking on the name of, but I think it may have even been one of Alexander Rockwell's newer films to my knowledge. Let me pull this up right here. I guess I could just pull it off the shelf if I really wanted to. Let me see if I can find it right here. Hold on. I got it. Got it right here. All right, yeah. Let's see here. What was the other film? Little Feat. That's what it was. 2013. I thought that's what it was. Which was an hour. And this will be watched at some point. And actually, I'm thinking about Steve Buscemi popping up in something like, if any of you are fans of experimental films, you have Symbiocytotoxoplasm, and he is in number two. Symbiocytotoxoplasm Take Two, brilliant film as well. I'm sorry, Take Two and a Half, and those are now readily available. Directed by William Greaves, of course. Uh, Fantastic. I don't even want to say. I don't. It's like I don't know what the term of it is. I'm a bit of a dummy, but it's those films that kind of blended documentary with fiction, where you started to really kind of blur the lines. I think about films like um, Coming Apart with Rip Torn, and of course David Holzman's Diary, both excellent, excellent films. And there's a name for that, and I'm not sure what it's called, and I'm blanking on it right now. But do forgive me. Um, but it's just really, really excellent stuff. Anyway, I got so sidetracked here. I went all the way from Ghost World to Symbio Psycho Taxoplasm. But yeah, Ghost World, man. It's I think this one is well known. I think a lot of film fans know about it. I don't know how popular it is in the general kind of consensus. Not that it really matters, but it's one that I've seen a couple times now, and it's one that like every time I revisit, I just really it's such just a nice film. It's such a cozy film. It's one that, I've seen films a couple of times, and sometimes you take things in more than others. But this is one where even after the first time that I had seen it, just remembering back to some of the situations that these characters were in, like the guy outside of the convenience store with the nunchucks. One of the probably the funniest scene in the film is when kind of like a funny but also sad is when Steve Buscemi is on a date at this jazz club to see this sort of renowned jazz musician, and then they have the main headliners and come on, and I'll let you kind of see for yourself. But it's very funny and just very ridiculous in a way that it's silly, but never like over the top silly. It's got almost this mannered tone throughout, even to the ending, where it almost becomes something maybe like even out of a graphic novel, where you're able to kind of take these more otherworldly um, elements. When I say otherworldly, I don't mean like an alien showing up or something. I mean otherworldly in the way that when the film is over, something happens. When the film is at the end, and something happens, and you're able to buy into it because of just kind of the mood of the rest of the film. But I think it's just one of the great films of the 21st century, undoubtedly, and one of the great coming of age films. I mean, so many great ones come to mind, and this is one that is in kind of the conversation of just when people are asking about like, man, what are the great kind of coming of age films? I mean, I think of my favorites. I think of like Breaking Away from Peter Yates, and I think of oh my gosh, I just lost the name of the film in my head. I was just about to say the name of the film. Yeah, Breaking Away. Jeremy, I think is a wonderful film with Robbie Benson. Oh my gosh, that's gonna bother me now. I just had the film I was gonna mention. It's a film that I love, and now I have completely drawn a blank on it. Holy moly! Oh, Summer of '42. That's what I was gonna say. Summer of '42, directed by was it Robert Mulligan who directed that from To Kill a Mockingbird? Yeah, Summer of '42. What a brilliant film. Why am I not silencing my telephone? Good lord. Yeah, I mean, of course you have the big ones, The Graduate. Um, I mean, if you want to get really kind of like Stand By Me and stuff, these sort of like come and those are great films too. I mean, The Graduate, and Stand By Me are both brilliant films, but I think sort of the more kind of honest ones, like Breaking Away, like Summer of '42, I think just kind of resonate in a certain way. But then you have stuff like, I guess you want to count like Spirit of the Beehive, or something even bigger, like, quote unquote bigger. I think like The Last Picture Show, but I think it's sort of um, designated to a certain age bracket because you can have coming of age. Meanwhile, the guys are in their 20s, or their early 20s, and something like Kicking and Screaming by Noah Baumbach. But I think more so about maybe like childhood to teens. I think Big Wednesday is probably kind of out of that wheelhouse just a bit. I think there were young adults in that. Yeah, they had to have been because there's a part where they are avoiding the draft, so they had to be over 18. But I guess it all kind of blends together. I think Big Wednesday probably be closer to that kicking and screaming sort of feel. So yeah, and I guess even Breaking Away as well because they are um, uh, recent graduates in that high school graduates from what I can remember. But man, I've got totally off topic. But yeah, Jeremy, that's a great film as well. I've talked about that before. Like one of the most heartfelt and truly romantic films I've ever seen. I am such a big fan of that film, Jeremy, from I think it was 1970. Okay, 73. I thought it was 76. Um, but that's just a whole. I mean, you can go down the rabbit hole right there with these great coming of age films. Yeah, but I think it's also films that sort of you grew up with and they really mean something to you. Films that you really kind of revisit at different points in your life that you end up sort of reflecting on. I recently, I watched a film that I had seen theatrically, and then I'd seen it a couple. I don't know if I actually seen it a couple times throughout the year, but I saw it when I was younger, and then revisiting it as an adult. Um, Almost 20 years later, I'm watching it with a new perspective, and it's a film that now I can appreciate on a different perspective, and that's sort of the power that not just films have, but any kind of art form. If you hear an album when you're younger, and then you don't hear it for a while, and then you put it on again, I mean, you often find yourself like, man, I haven't heard this in a while, but I subconsciously still know most of the lyrics, and I still remember certain, guitar riffs or drum beats or anything like that, and it's just fascinating how that all works. Or you watch a film and like the soundtrack, you're like, oh man, the song I always associate with that film. There's just myriad films that are like that. Um, anyway, I've gotten totally off topic here, but let's cut it here because I know if I start, I'm gonna go into a whole nother spiel about something, and there's just too much to do. So there's no shortage of films this episode to write down. Uh, you know, all the ones I mentioned. I'm not going to run through them. You can go back and listen to it again. But I hope you all are doing well. These days are just so beautiful. Just driving back from work today, and just the beautiful kind of summer air. People, smiling and laughing, drinking, iced coffee and drinking, cola, and just, people walking on the street. It's all just so wonderful. It's just a wonderful time to live, and we really got to take advantage of that fully. So that'll be it for this episode, man. Thank you guys for listening. I'm trying to get the next episode of People Pictures out. Time has just not been on my side. Trying to get that out, but it never is. So do what we can while we can still do it. But anyways, thank you so much.